I
places
guess
like that.
I was as to kind of just like expand on not only just not focusing on like these like those minor issues that kind of get caught up in like this row issue, but
Mhm.
like the development of programs and policies on the left that actually cut to the core of what the issue is.
Right. So there's not an easy way to do that. I mean, I I think that the first step is, for at least for people on the left, is ideological reframing. Like, I mean, that's why in the pieces that I write, I'm so obsessed with like the structure, both the macroeconomic structure that causes many of these problems, but also the structure of like what we are all doing. Like when we say we're defending abortion rights or reproductive justice or reproductive rights, this in the public sphere, like what I see on Twitter or the people I talk to at meetings or whatever, the New York Times, the opinion pieces, we have these ideological battles. So in the public sphere, we're having an ideological battle between pro-choice and pro-life. And then on the liberal left-wing milieu, we have an ideological contest between pro-choice and reproductive justice. Okay, and then we have like, and so we have these like different ideological alternatives, and they kind of shape shift. Especially the conservatives, like the pro-life discourse has changed dramatically, and then, and I also think on the pro-choice side, there's more adoption of like as I wrote in my piece, decentering abortion by emphasizing other social services that maybe NGOs or Planned Parenthood provides. Anyway, so there's this ideological battle about like what we're fighting over, and this is known as the culture war at the top. Okay, and then within the left, we kind of have a culture war that is both substantive and cultural. Like we, on the one hand, like see the shortcomings of the pro-choice framework, and like culturally we want to contest that with better ideas, but the thing that never happens is what is the structural nature of the problem. And I was talking like big picture, like abstract and more densely about capitalism, but literally we're talking about a political terrain that is just dominated by a nonprofit industrial complex, which is just like, no matter what your ideology is, whether you're pro-choice or reproductive justice, you're all doing the same shit. You're all have the same kind of service oriented, electorally driven, community organizing, the kind of bastardized Saul Alinsky thing that we all do now. Like, this is what politics is. And none of this is capable of doing anything but being defensive in the face on the onset of attacks. So that's like when we start asking, I think we spend a lot more time than we should kind of I some of the ideological battles have actually been won, but and we spent too much time litigating those. So most of the American population is already pro-choice, and most of the reproductive rights world is already sympathetic to or adopting the framework of reproductive justice, and nothing is changing. So there has to be like a more political analysis of what to do, and that is kind of like, and who are your opponents? Why are they so well funded? Where are they coming from? Why is our only political like defenders, why is Planned Parenthood my political advisor as opposed to my healthcare provider? I mean, these are the questions that I feel like get lost in the morass of culture war stuff. And so that's point one. So like, what can we do is like, the first thing is to get a grasp on the problem. And then the second thing I think is to take stock of like the last time people got a grasp on the problem, what did they do poorly? And maybe they didn't foresee the unintended law of unintended consequences. It's not necessarily a criticism. It's just, this is what happened. Feminists wanted independent clinics because they couldn't convince hospitals, a lot of Catholic hospitals or whatever, to train people to do abortions. And they also wanted, at the time it was like in the 60s, it was like community control. We want control over our own clinics, women providing healthcare to other women in a male-dominated field. And at the time that made sense. Now we have a institutional problem where these clinics are extremely vulnerable, beg the Democratic Party for funding and from private donors and so on, and are you can and now we have, they're like the epicenter of this like weird and violent militant conservative movement. And so that didn't go well. And so whatever conclusion that we need to draw, whether it's expanding access to health insurance, bringing it structurally into the mainstream of the healthcare system, like literally normalizing abortion, I think that's like, I don't know what that would look like exactly, but I feel like those are the kind of thoughts that like could be out there.
Well, you talk about this in your piece, and I thought that was actually really interesting about kind of the normalizing or attempt to normalize the conversation of abortion as part of healthcare. And on the left, I think a lot of us go, yeah, of course. But when you got more in depth with that part, and you're like, well, when you hear abortion clinics try to defend themselves, they don't talk about being abortion clinics. We're like, no. We're not just for abortion. We do pap smears and we hand out condoms and needle exchanges. Like, don't think this is the abortion place. This is the everything place. And it does kind of eliminate and put abortion back to that dark corner of discourse. I did find that interesting. Marcus, did you?
Oh no, I mean this is like, I mean, like I think to exactly that point, you know, just hitting on what I was saying is that, and I think I've even met like one of the former directors of Planned Parenthood in my former life, and that's what it is. It's like, as you know, I was like a staffer, you know, so that's what it is. Like they have the access, and it's a very much dedicated relationship between Planned Parenthood and the Democratic Party to, you know, do the work of saying, as Kamala had so effortlessly and perfectly put it. But that's all you get, right? Is they talk about all the things that they're doing, but and like I'm happy too is that Lillian had framed it in such a perfect way of saying like they show that they're good for abortion rights by saying all the things that they do other than abortion, and that's where too it's like I think yeah we're saying no, this is a clinic that does abortion, and I think that people who actually go to clinics to try and like do anti-protesting, people who put themselves in between people who are just trying to access healthcare, you know, that is also good, and I think it's a very, you know, front-facing way of showing all, like public, that this is something like an issue that is about healthcare, right? If you're going to, you know, do some type of action or anything like that for Medicare for all, is abortion, you know, wrapped into that, and a dedicated process? Because at this point too, it's like it needs to be overstated because of where our society is. Um, and it would be nice if it didn't have to be that way, but that's kind of where we are now.
My question is that is Lillian, I get the sense that you're saying that part of the problem is that this issue has been poorly politicized. And my question is maybe we should think about depoliticizing the whole subject. I've always believed, in my personal opinion, on the subject of the abortion is that why are men even talking about this in a political framework when this is about the choice of women and their bodies and you know actually better and their health care. And maybe part of the better consequence of us pivoting to Lillian's framing of this as a healthcare choice is that that would possibly lead to a depoliticization. Anyone think anybody have thoughts on that?
I only reason I'd say no is just because I mean healthcare is politicized as well. You know, I don't think it's like we can't just hell like what's not politicized. You know, Disney characters,
Disney characters are
Candy,
M&Ms.
Candy not being sexy enough. Like it
You know,
you know,
if I can't fuck my candy,
yeah.
I'm pissed off.
Yeah, I think it could have happened maybe 20 years ago, you know, like 30 years ago. I don't know. But like it, I feel like my entire life, as soon as you say abortion, you know, there's teams and there's parties involved. And like at the end of the day, only one of those teams is actually successful in changing material reality. And it's very much on the back of politics. So like, I don't
Does
know.
the panel think they're just right? Has too much of a powerful say so in even the conversation? Because I think that has a lot to do with with the left or even the liberal class that pushes back on abortion clinics and more on public health clinics. I think that has to do with a fear of losing power in certain voting bases. What say you, panel? Anyone
I
else?
think they do have far too much power. Yeah, they really do. I mean, I think that something that I think is true about the abortion rights, or the anti-abortion movement. I think that this is the most successful right-wing political movement of the neoliberal era in terms of its level of organization, cohesiveness, ability to shift ideologically and discursively, like rhetoric. I mean, they well-funded, the militancy, and the level of success, almost uncontested success. So I think that yes, they have a lot of power, and it's minoritarian. I don't believe that most people agree with this, but I think that people, it's the reason why I think maybe I think the goal is to depoliticize abortion, like to make abortion normal. It would have to be a normal part of going to the doctor, and that's what we want for everybody. So I think that in that sense, I agree. I just think that given that this movement persists, that it's not going anywhere, even if they win at a federal level and revoke Roe, like this North Carolina group called Love Life, they just set up a huge office and have a congregation now that meets sporadically in Manhattan, and they're from North Carolina because they're so confident they're winning in North Carolina that they're moving into New York. And that's going to be a long battle for them. New York is very liberal. Roe isn't going to be overturned in New York. But this isn't going away. And because it's not going away and it needs to be confronted to, build it into a different program, I just feel like being there's probably a way to finesse it to get people on board with a vision for like healthcare reform or whatever. But I think hiding it or not making it political is a mistake because, and I've written this elsewhere in a Jacobin piece, I think that it can kind of be the Trojan horse where it's like, you want to include abortion in a Medicare for all bill? Well, you could pass it if only you take that out, and that's going to be the thing that stymies the whole thing. And that's not good. I don't think that's what people want.
What a great fundraising tool Roe has been too, because I think, and this is just my opinion, and you guys can tell me to go F off or if you don't agree. I think Texas is a perfect example of the far right taking over and how the GOP is not fans of the far right taking over, because the pushback that the GOP got when that abortion bill passed, the fundraising dollars the Democratic Party was able to generate when that abortion bill passed, they became the boogeyman that will energize a defeated base without Trump. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out. You can catch the live stream of This Is Revolution every Tuesday through Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. This is Revolution.